I'm gonna hit record here before I forget. It has been and I'll wait for a few minutes here to see if some stragglers join. I literally, you guys, just walked in the door. I'm like, maybe we all will start with some deep breaths today. Maybe that's where I'll start this. Murray had a doctor's appointment because she just got she got some eczema, I think, on her face, and it's just like increasingly and it's just increasingly gotten worse. And I am, for the life of me, cannot figure out like what it is. I'm like, looking at our detergent, I'm looking at her food, I'm looking at my diet. And it was just, it's like, it just kept getting worse. And to the point where like she's scratching now. So it's like opening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we got to go, like, because I don't want her to get an infection is what I was worried about. But the doctor's office, like, I don't know what they were doing, but they just didn't have their lives together today. And it was like our appointment was at 3:15 and we literally didn't get out of there until about 4:40. And I was like telling the lady, I'm like, it was just like everything just like kept going wrong. Like it just took a really long time for the doctor to get in. And then we're talking through everything. And then they wanted to give her a little, like it's a little histamine, like a natural medication, a little histamine just to get it to calm down. So I'm trying to pay for it and their card system isn't working. And it's just like one thing after, and I'm like, guys, I'm really sorry, but I have to go. I have a Zoom call in like 20 minutes and they're in Woodbury. I'm at New Kingdom in Woodbury. And I'm like, Tim, I'm like, you have to speed. Like, you have to get home. I've got to, normally I have some time before the Zoom call to like.
You should have just come over to my house. You could have just done it from here.
I know. I was honestly ready to, I'm like, Tim, I might just have to do this from the car. Like you might have to just take Murray and I'm just going to go sit somewhere and like do the Zoom call. Normally I like to read over my scribble worth of notes, but I'm like, you know what? We're going to roll with it.
You're a true professional. You have it down pat.
I don't even know where I am right now. That's okay though. That's okay.
So do they think it's anything related to your food or just kind of dry baby skin?
It could be. It's just like eczema is just like one of those like shot in the dark type things. It's really hard to figure out, it's they said likely just because of what her face looks like, and she has some other little patches on her body. It's funny, whoever watches the replay, yes, you're gonna have to listen to the first 5 minutes of me talking about my baby's eczema. You're welcome. Just by judging by like what she looks, they do think it's just kind of like some kind of allergic itch. They say allergy loosely because it's very hard to give babies that small like allergies per se, but it looks like a reaction to something, and it's usually food or environmental.
Well, think about the rest of us right now, though. Like it's everything is blooming.
Yeah.
And like the rest, I don't know about you, but our house is miserable right now.
Well, and I normally
like seasonal.
Yeah, Tim has seasonal allergies. I have never really had any allergies, like environmental or food for the most part. But I got sinus stuff ever since being pregnant. At the tail end of COVID, I got a sinus infection, and then I just continued to get sinus infections not throughout my pregnancy, but I got a couple of them. So yeah, we're just like, a couple things they want me just to make sure I'm diligent about keeping dairy and gluten out of my diet, and her diet. And I'm like, well, she definitely doesn't get gluten. She does get dairy sometimes though. And they're like, yeah, just for like a safeguard, just take it out for 2 weeks. It's, actually, everybody, for you guys and then the folks who are going to watch the replay, this all ties back into the reset because she's having an immune response. What we've talked about on day 2 about supportive food, she's having some kind of immune response to likely food or something in the environment. So we're having to take it out, like I encouraged everybody to do here, taking the grains out, taking the seed oils out to see what happens and then see how your body reacts when you put those things back in. But so we'll be diligent about, because like gluten, like I don't eat a lot because we don't eat a lot of grains, but that's not to say I never have gluten. Like I just had a, what do we eat this weekend? One of our friends made some homemade cookies and I had, a cookie that has gluten in it. So she said just be diligent about that. And then there's something called Egyptian cream. I don't know, look it up on Amazon. It's supposed to be this like great thing. And she's like, it's all natural. There's nothing weird in it. It's like honey and some other like olive oil and some other stuff. And she said it usually works wonders for almost any kind of skin thing, like babies or not. Like women can use it to take off their makeup. Like, so
I'm gonna check that out.
I wonder if it's got the propolis honey in it.
Yeah,
which is known to have medicinal properties in it.
Yep, that's exactly what was in it. And then a couple other things, bee pollen. Yeah, just a few other kind of natural earth-like, we're on the crunchy side of things, if you guys haven't noticed yet. A couple other things. Too. Yeah, right. So we'll see, but we'll see how we'll see. She just, outside of that, like it doesn't seem to be bothering her too much. Like she doesn't have a temperature or anything like that. So we'll see. Okay. Where are we? Week 6. You got, this is the last one. This is the last one. Here we are, our closing week. Our last week together, actually. So what I think I'm going to do, folks, is this is going to be the last Zoom call, but I think I'm going to jump on a Facebook Live instead of doing a Facebook Zoom, or instead of doing a Zoom at the end of the week. For those of you who have done a reset before, normally I have like a closing call, like a closing Zoom. So there would be one more Zoom call. That's not like a workshop or anything. It's just kind of a closing. Normally I would do that, but I think I'm just going to jump on a Facebook Live. I will try to give you guys a heads up to when that is, but obviously it's Facebook Live, so you guys can watch it whenever. And I think I'm probably going to do that this weekend sometime. And that is when I'm going to pick the giveaway winners. So if you guys remember kind of from the beginning, I talked about a few items that I had. Actually, I didn't have yet because I didn't know what I was actually giving you guys yet. But now I know. So I've got a couple boxes of Element. I've got some Primal Kitchen stuff. You guys have heard me talk about that. So I have a couple of those things that I'm going to give away to the folks who kind of engaged the most, was most active in the Facebook group along those lines. 1 second, let me check the Facebook group here just to make sure. So that's that. And there will also be, you will see in a couple of days, a survey that pops up in your guys' Facebook group. If you would all take literally 3 minutes, there's only like 4 questions on it and it's super easy. If you guys would just take a few minutes out of your time to fill out the survey, because that information is super valuable for me, my coaching, the program, the reset, all of that. So take a few minutes to fill that out. Even if you didn't engage, like you signed up for the program and you're like, this was not what I thought it was. Brandy sucks. I don't like this stuff. Let me know. Tell me. I do actually want to hear those things. And if you have positive stuff to say, also put that in there. Okay, week 6 brings us to our last topic, movement and exercise. I like to say those are 2 different things because they kind of are 2 different things in my world. Funny enough, actually, I have a story. Let's do story time. So I do on-demand coaching calls. Just they're like one-time coaching calls. They're available to any previous client. So that will be you guys. So if that is something you guys are interested in at the end of the reset. But they're basically, just what it says, a one-time coaching call. And you guys will just get a little bit of a discounted rate for that. So somebody that I've known for years, actually, a female, she used to be a member at my gym for a really long time. I've seriously probably known her for like 8 years. She reached out and wanted to do an on-demand coaching call. And moral of the story, she was struggling. She was having a lot of hormonal issues. She was having issues with really high cortisol levels. Her energy was in the shitter, like her hunger, her cravings were just kind of like out of control, just feeling very unmanageable. And she was just feeling very lost with it. And she found a chiropractor, actually her chiropractor, who happens to do like lifestyle medicine. who was like, we should do some blood tests and stuff like that, get all your markers, see where you're at. And she's working with him, and he sounds wonderful. Actually, we don't have a lot of chiropractors like that. So I was actually really amazed that her chiropractor was helping her out so much like this. But she wanted to talk to me about exercise. So basically the feedback from the chiropractor was in her blood work that her cortisol is like through the roof. And it's remained at a very high elevated level for an extended period of time. And that explains a lot. And she, you know, I already know a little bit of her back history, but she was kind of telling me, she's like, you know, Brandy, I've spent literally most of my life chronically dieting and chronically exercising, and she knows it. She's like, I'm addicted to exercise. And when I say addicted to exercise, I'm talking she's the person like that high intensity, like black hole punishing workouts, like day in and day out. Like that's her jam. Like the harder you can go, the worse off you feel after those workouts. Like the boot camps and the spin classes and the F45s and the Peloton and all of those kind of like high output, high intensity workouts, she loves. She's addicted to that. And, you know, she was talking to me like she's literally tried every diet underneath the sun, any diet that you could possibly think of. She's like, I've done it. I'm burnt out. I'm feeling like shit. And this all brings her up to how she's feeling today. And then, you know, the thing that stuck with me, and I'm sure some of you guys can relate, she was feeling very defeated when she was talking to her chiropractor. She's like, she had this realization of like, holy shit, I just spent the last 20 years of my life extreme dieting and extreme working out to change my body. And I am literally in the same body today than when I started this 15, 20 years ago. And it was just this moment for her of like, holy shit, like I literally did everything right? We've heard that before. Like I'm doing everything right. I'm dieting, I'm micromanaging my food, I'm doing all the things that diet culture and fitness culture tell me to do. I'm doing all these crazy cardio-based workouts to burn body fat, to torch the body fat. And I literally never changed. This is what she was saying to me. And it was just a bummer because I can relate to her, and I know a lot of people, and a lot of people who join my reset and I work with also could probably relate to that feeling. But long story short, we really had to, what she wanted me to do the on-demand coaching call was to talk about what fitness can look like for her moving forward, because she knows she can't go back to her obsessive, you know, exercise abuse because her body is breaking down. Right now, the chiropractor literally has her no working out. She can't work out. The only thing she can do is walk right now until we get the hormonal balance, until we get the cortisol and stuff back down. And I just thought it was a fitting story because we're going to talk about today kind of about exercise and some of the culprits of chronically exercising. And what is the movements? What are the kind of movements and exercises that our body, our biology, our DNA does really well with, that you're going to get the most bang for your buck metabolically speaking and body composition speaking. So, so we're kind of troubleshooting, came up with a plan about kind of what her fitness is going to look like afterwards outside of walking, and then getting back into some strength training and tapping the brakes on those kind of cardio-based high intensity workouts, at least not as free, you know, maybe once or twice a week type thing. But yeah, I just thought it was a really fitting story coming up into what we're going to talk about today. Ideally, if I could spend 2 or 3 weeks talking about this topic, this content, because there's just so much to unravel, you guys, so much to unravel, so many misconceptions from the fitness industry, but I don't have that long, so I'm going to jam pack it here, and I'm going to try to 30 minutes here. So I like to break down fitness kind of into 3 categories. 2 categories, but I'm going to say 3 for right now. I think if somebody asked me what is the most metabolically supportive movement that you could possibly do, I would say walking and strength training. Anything else in between that is kind of wishy-washy, to be honest. It's not to say that we don't love some of that exercise. I'm not saying that. But anything in between can be very metabolically confusing for our bodies because our bodies just aren't designed for some of the exercise that happens in between walking and strength training. I was reading this book the other day and it pointed out, what did it say? It said, you guys have all heard, like, you want to find some kind of exercise that you enjoy, right? Like, because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to stick to it. And then that defeats the point because we know how beneficial, nothing to do with our bodies, guys. I want to put exercise in a different pot of, it has nothing to do with our bodies or body losing fat or anything like that. Like, we exercise for a bazillion different reasons, but losing weight is not one of them. Exercise really actually sucks at helping us lose weight. It's not a great weight loss tool. So I like to put them in two pots. But strength training and walking, I think those are the two metabolically most supportive things that we can do, and it's going to you're going to reap the most benefit from those things. But the book talked about, yes, you have to enjoy the kind of fitness you're doing, but sometimes what we enjoy doing is not congruent with our goals. And that can be a hard pill for people to swallow. I used to work with a lady she was a runner. And all of her exercise, kind of all of her training modalities, all of that was based on cardio and running. But her goal was fat loss. She loved running. So it's not like I'm going to be like, well, you can't run again, because there's lots of benefits from cardio-based workout, like mood enhancing, like that cardio workout versus strength training and some other stuff is actually more of a mood enhancer, which a lot of people don't know. Hence the runner's high, right? Why people get a lot of that feeling when they do cardio-based workout. But anyway, her goal was fat loss, but she loved running and she didn't really want to do anything else, like no strength training or anything. And those goals were button heads. So sometimes just realizing what we like to do in the gym, our fitness, is not always super supportive of our health goals. So we have to sometimes have an honest conversation about ourselves. But fitness into 3 categories. Number 1, basic movement, basically just not being sedentary. Okay. Just not being sedentary throughout our day. Number 2, low level aerobic movement. I'm not talking about aerobics, like aerobics class, like Jane Fonda style. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about low level aerobic movement, like walking. Okay. Spoiler alert, this is actually the best exercise for humans. Okay. And then number 3, strength training. Call it what strength training, weightlifting, resistance training, call it what you want it. I like to just strength training. I think it is a better encompass of all of that. So those are my 3 categories I'm going to talk about. Something that I want to talk about. We live in a world nowadays where we are obsessed with being small. Okay. We're obsessed with being small, being thin, being lean, being shredded, being tiny, shrinking our bodies, burning our bodies down, being less, right? That's what we like to do. That is the socially accepted and sought out after body. It's the body that's praised in our society. It's the body that is privileged in our society. It's an interesting topic for me to talk about because I live in a socially acceptable body. I live in a small body, and that is what our culture says is the right body, is the healthy body, is the normal body, is the praised body, and anything else outside of that isn't accepted, unfortunately. So I have to, I try to be sensitive and aware of my position when I talk about body size, because I have a bias since I am in one of those quote unquote ideal bodies. I don't like to say that, but hopefully you guys can understand what I'm saying. With that said, our obsession with being small and thin, it doesn't make sense. Okay, we're gonna put our evolutionary caps on here for a second, take our dieting caps off, put our evolutionary caps on. It doesn't make sense to be a small or thin or skinny person, right? The strong and durable humans are the humans that survived, okay? Right? The small, the weak, the thin, those humans didn't survive. They didn't make it. honestly, some of the most shredded or lean human beings that I know, people that I know that micromanage their food, are literally some of the unhealthiest people that I know. You don't have to be you can be metabolically unhealthy, metabolically unwell, and still be in a small body. I do want to say that. This is not just for people who are overweight or have weight to lose or whatever. I've seen quite the opposite, and some of the fittest people that we would call the fittest people are just as metabolically unhealthy as somebody who that might be overweight. So I just want to shine a little bit of light on that. But right, remember that when we're scrolling through social media and we're seeing people and we're like, like I want to look like those people, and it's like, I guarantee that they're struggling with something. You know, it takes a lot to get our bodies to look like that, and for most people, it's not going to be healthy. But so, anyways, I really want to flip the script on this narrative about wanting to be smaller and like burning our bodies down, right? Burning the calories. Like I'm working out, I'm burning. I'm so fucking sick of hearing people talk about burning calories. There's my rant for today, you guys. I want people to want to build up their bodies, not burn them down all the time, right? Like that, those are the human beings that are the strong ones, the robust ones, the fit ones, the ones that would have survived in our world, not the opposite. So strength is what is going to carry you through life, right? Not an 8-pack. And when I say carry you through life, I'm talking about like supporting you into your older age. It's just general strength, not some of those aesthetic small details that we fall victim to or that we are conditioned to believe that we should look like. I do believe that at a genetic level, at a DNA level, our ancient DNA on our body are designed to be healthy and robust and fit. And durable. I do think that's our birthright. I think our bodies are designed to be that way. I think that for some people that just got lost somewhere along the way, you know, due to our lifestyle choices, due to the inputs that we're kind of giving our body. And we are here to remind our bodies again how to be kind of those badass, strong, durable, functioning bodies again. And it's funny, you know, somebody asked me a couple of days ago. Hold on, I need some water, guys.
I was going to say, I have a question too about this, because I can't even remember who it was, but I saw a lot of doctors on social media, and one of them was actually saying that as a female, if we have a 6-pack or 8-pack, that actually it's not hormonally healthy for us as females. What do you think about that? Because that was something that I'd never heard before, and it made me like, oh, huh. But it made me think of some of the conversations you and I have had, and I just wondered what your take was on that.
I think there are some women who are just naturally very, very lean and athletic. I do think there is some genetic piece of that, but those are like the freaks, right? I mean that in a nice way. You know, like the CrossFit athletes, like natural CrossFit athletes, or some of those kind of people, like they don't look that way because they CrossFit. They CrossFit because they look that way. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like that's something that people don't understand when you like see a professional runner, right? They're like tall and they're lean and they're lengthy, and people look at them, they're like, and then they have that as their goal. Like, I want to look like that. And it's like, they don't look like that because they run because they look like that, you know? And that's how they got good at running, is they had that body makeup. So as far as women with 6-packs, yes. Do some have 6-packs, and that might be a healthy place for them? Yes. For most, though, and I could be wrong, this is just my opinion, for most, like your body fat percentage would have to be so low that I think most women would run into problems hormonally.
Okay.
By the time they hit that point. And something to also say from an evolutionary perspective, right? Even if you are a woman who, well, both of you have kids, so you can relate to this, but there are women that don't have kids or don't want kids, and that is totally okay. But your body is still, your biology is set up for you to reproduce. So women tend to carry, right? We carry more fat in our chest. We carry more fat in our abdominal area, and it's for reproduction purposes. Whether or not you decide to have children, that's kind of beside the point. So I think you would have to work very hard, Lindy. You would, for a lot of women, would have to work really hard. And then we're getting into the kind of the chronic dieting and then the micromanaging of your food. You're going to have to give up your social life because you're really not going to be able to like it's going to be work. It's going to be effort. So good question though. So I'd say for most women, probably not. That would probably be a really detrimental goal for most women to have. And I'm somebody that 10 years ago I had some abs. They didn't make me any happier, I'll tell you that. And I had an eating disorder, so it's just like my what I gave up in order to look that way, because it was very important to me at the time, was a lot, because I lost a good relationship with food in order to look a certain way. And it's not like I didn't magically get more rich. I didn't find any more job opportunities because I had abs sticking out of me. You know what I mean? I developed an eating disorder and I had to chronically micromanage my food in order to maintain that. And I was not a happy, enjoyable person to be around. I will tell you that. And I lost my menses. Like a lot of women who are yo-yo dieters will really struggle with having an irregular cycle. Totally not applicable to the men here if you rewatch this, but it's something to know because that's a metabolism piece. So good question. I want people to be fit. Okay. I want people to be fit, physically fit. Somehow our fitness industry has brainwashed us into thinking that being physically fit has a look to it, right? That being fit is equivalent to being in a socially acceptable, small, thin, skinny body. And I don't think that's true. Like, I don't think that's true for me. Here's what physically fit means for me, and it's going to look different for you. Like, it means being able to do whatever that you want to in your life, that you need to, and that you love to do without any physical limiting factors. Okay. Like, I want to be able to carry Murray. I want to be able to carry my daughter, as long as possible without getting tired or without my knees hurting. I want to be able to chase after her when she gets older without getting winded. I want to be able to go outside and shovel my driveway in the winter without throwing out my back or having to sit down because I can't breathe. I want to be able to garden. I want to be able to go for a hike and not have to slam gummy bears in order to keep my energy up because my body doesn't know how to burn anything besides sugar. Those are the things that I need to be able to do to physically perform the things in my life that are a requirement of my life and that I enjoy to do. Like, that's what being physically fit means to me. And that could be something different to you. Maybe you guys have like your parents that you have to caretake for, that you're going to have to lift them up and move them. And, you want to stay physically fit so you can do those things to help your grandparents out or your grandchildren out. Like, those are the things that are important. So your fit might look different than mine. Can you sit on the ground, crisscross applesauce, and can you get up without using your hands? I demonstrated that, you guys, in the first couple of resets. I'm not going to do it right now because my setup's not great, but I can still do it. And I can do it with an 18-pound, she is 18 pounds because we just weighed her at the doctor today, an 18-pound baby. And like, that's what being fit means to me. You can squat all the weight in the world. You can do as many pull-ups in the world, but if that does not pour over to your life and help you age gracefully, then what's the point? It's those kind of things. Like, when you get older and you fall, can you get yourself back up? So everybody, when you're done watching this, go and get on the ground, crisscross applesauce, and try to get up without using your hands. It is much harder than it sounds, but those are the things that are going to help you out. So, okay, back to my 3 categories of fitness here really quick, or movement. number one, don't be sedentary. I probably don't need to speak too much about this, but this is just your basic movement throughout the day. It's not exercise. It has nothing to do with fitness. It's just about your intentional movement throughout the day, your intentional your movement patterns throughout the day, and not being in the same position for too long. He's waking up Murray from her nap. I didn't even realize it was 5:30 already. Ooh. So if you're like me, I spend most of my day sitting on a computer. So I have to be very intentional, like getting up and moving around. So if you, especially if you are somebody who has a desk job where you are really sitting and doing this a good majority of your day, whatever you have to do just to remind yourself to get up every once in a while, move around, stretch your neck, go for a little walk. Maybe you have to set a timer on your phone or something like that. Maybe you go sit on the floor with your laptop for a bit. If you've been sitting for a while, can you stand up? Do you have like a sit-stand desk? I invested in a sit-stand desk here for our house so I can stand up and work. Sometimes I'm not always sitting. Go sit on the floor for a little bit and work. Take a break, go fold some laundry, do a little dance, whatever you need to do, but just don't be sedentary throughout the day. That is not good for our human DNA. It does not want us to be sitting and not moving most of the day. This is the part where your NEAT, if you guys heard of NEAT movement, NEAT exercise, so your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. We don't have to really remember that outside of, that's just your movement. It basically means your how do I want to say this? The movement you do just living your life. Okay. Whether it's you're just going about your day, your business, sleeping, eating, puttering around, getting groceries, putting the dishes away, right? This is all considered your NEAT movement, your non-exercise movement. It's just kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis. What is interesting though, the amount of calories you burn in a day, most of them are burned through your NEAT exercise, which I think is pretty neat. Calorie burn from the gym is negligible. This is where a lot of people get confused because they think they go into the gym and they think they burn all of these calories because they're little Fitbits and their little calorie, whatever they're called, calorie fidget trackers tell them like, oh, I just did a workout and I burned 600 calories. You didn't. I can tell you didn't. I don't even know what kind of exercise you did, but I can still tell you probably didn't. Actually, I was at Experience the other day and I posted this online. They have a flyer up, and I'm going to poo-poo on Experience, even though I do have a membership there. Their XFit classes or something like that, which are just kind of like cross-training boot camp style classes. Their advertisement for that is you can torch up to 1,500 calories per workout. And I was like, that's honestly humanly almost impossible to burn that many calories through exercise. And so it's just bullshit marketing like that to get you to work out like that I hate. But anyways,
that's like 5 hours long then.
I was like, I almost wanted to go to the front desk and be like, you guys need to take that down. Like you are like preying on people with that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just such bad advertising. And besides, like when we talk about, because it said torching your calories, like you're definitely not torching any fat when you're working out at that high intensity, right? So when we're doing low intensity, kind of aerobic, cardio based workout, low and slow, we're primarily using fat for energy, right? We're primarily using fat to kind of support that activity. And then when you jump into the other side and you're doing like high intensity interval training or strength training, we're dominantly using glucose or sugar for fuel. Those kind of workouts that are super metabolically confusing because they're high intensity for too long, for extended period of time, like you are not in the fat burning zone anymore. You are most definitely torching sugar. So it should say torch sugar at this, which is not good because I'll talk about that, but I digress a little bit, but that sign really pissed me off. So NEAT movement, everything that you just do throughout the day, that is actually where your biggest daily caloric expenditure comes from, okay? Not exercise. In fact, many people that overdo it in the gym end up lowering their NEAT exercise. So here we are thinking we're kind of doing ourselves a favor by killing ourselves in the gym to burn this small amount of calories. But what happens is we end up not moving as much throughout the rest of the day. And that's the kind of movement where we actually burn a majority of our calories. Like think of have you ever, think of the last time you did like a super, super hard workout, okay? And then you're done with it and you're like trying to pick yourself off the floor. And the last thing you want to do is literally walk to your car. You're like, fuck, like I don't even want to walk to my car. You don't want to take the stairs. You're now parking as close as you can to Target because you don't want to walk across the right. So our movement the rest of the day goes down because we killed ourselves in the gym, and that is counterproductive because we burn most of our calories just doing our day-to-day life, not in the gym. And many people do this, and I think it's funny. Moving on, number 2, low-level aerobic movement. Okay, humans' favorite form of movement. This is the best for us. This is what we're designed to do. We are bipedal, so we can walk. Okay, this is the low and slow kind of activity. Okay, aerobic exercise is low and slow. Remember that. And when we partake in low and slow activity, our body uses our slow fuels, fat and ketones. Remember, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. Our fast fuels come from sugar, carbohydrates, and our slow fuels come from fat and ketones. So when we engage in aerobic, low and slow aerobic movement, we are primarily using fat to support that movement. This is like when you hear people say like the fat burning zone or your like aerobic threshold, this is kind of what they're talking about. This saves sugar, our fast burning fuel, for like the bigger, faster things that we need to do, like the lifting and the strength training, or when we kind of need those quick bursts of energy for whatever we're doing in our life. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors literally moved all of the time. Okay, this is the form of movement that our bodies, our DNA expects. So we're reminding our bodies how to be human again. Remember back to that gene expression. I've referenced gene expression 100 times, and I apologize, but I do think it's really important. When we behave in a way that aligns with our design, aligns with our DNA, we express our genes in a healthy way. Okay, when we do the opposite, like chronic exercising or other adverse lifestyle habits, right, like not getting sleep and eating a poor diet, that is when dysfunction, metabolic dysfunction, and disease presents itself in our body. So what is aerobic movement exactly? I'm going to define it a little bit. So aerobic movement is movement that can be sustained easily for a long period of time without your heart rate getting too high. I think in the printout, your guys' weekly content, it said something about a heart rate calculation. I hope I might have taken out of there. It's 180 minus your age. So mine, 180 minus 35, whatever that is. You guys, I don't do math. What is that, 145? Somebody, do you know 145? Let's call it 145. Oh, you guys, that's how my day is going right now. So my aerobic threshold is 145 and underneath. Okay. My heart rate. Okay. My aerobic threshold is 145 and below. Any movement, any activity that I do that I stay under 145, I am considered in my aerobic, my fat burning world. Okay. So, and you don't have to track, right? Some people like to look, have their heart rate monitors and they look at it, or they count their heartbeat, count their heartbeats and do it that way. You can do that if you want, but don't go out of your way. Just think, like, if you can sustain a conversation while you're doing this kind of movement, you're probably in the aerobic threshold. If you get to the point where you're out of breath and you can't really talk and you need to be resting, you're probably no longer in your aerobic threshold. Okay. Aerobic movement feels nice. Okay. It feels nice. It doesn't really feel like too much work. It doesn't feel like you're going somewhere and like crushing a workout. Okay. And So think walking, think like light yoga, not like heated yoga or anything like that. Like that's a death trap. Swimming, leisurely bike riding, gardening, those kind of things, like those are going to be like aerobic movement. You know the saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. I mean, it's true. There's actually a lot of truth to this. Like this aerobic movement is the movement that kind of strengthens our joints and our ligaments, like the little pieces in our body that need to be strengthened. This is the kind of movement that is going to help that. It helps with weight management. It helps with our metabolism, our hormones, mitigation of stress. It can reduce inflammation and improves our mood, just like I talked about before. Like cardio-based workout is very great for mood boosting and mood enhancing. And it reduces the risks of cancers and other metabolic conditions. And it lowers like blood pressure. If people have blood pressure issues, go for a walk. Okay, go for a walk. Another thing, so all forms of exercise, guys, I'm sweating to death. I think we turned off the air during the day, and I think I forgot to put it back on, and my room is like a swamp right now. All exercise produces a cortisol response. That's something because we kind of fear cortisol sometimes, and there's in acute situations, there's nothing wrong with cortisol. Cortisol is actually very helpful to have going on when we're working out. So all forms of exercise have a cortisol response. The only form of exercise that does not raise your cortisol is walking. So fun fact, if you suffer from high stress and high cortisol, go for a walk. That is a very, very helpful kind of exercise movement for you to be doing. Okay, movement number 3, last thing, strength training. I'm not saying you need to walk into the gym and start like bro lifting if you're not there. Like if you've never worked out and working out is not your thing, you don't have to go in and start it now, but I do want to put it on your radar, and I do want to tell you why it's so metabolically important for us to maintain lean muscle mass as we get older. And that's where strength training is going to come into. So if you don't exercise already, start with walking and then find some way to add in strength training. Okay. And when I say strength training, you don't like your body weight. If you're just starting out, your body we have weight to our body. Our body can actually be resistance for us. So just simple things like push-ups and lunges and stuff where you're just using your own body weight, that is strength training, depending on where you are. You know what I mean? Depending on kind of your athletic abilities. So if you're just starting out, start out with your body weight. That's more than necessary. So here's some reasons why I want people to focus on strength training. Gene expression again. I'm gonna go back to gene expression. Everything always goes back to gene expression. Humans are designed to occasionally lift and carry heavy things. Okay. By strength training, we're reminding our bodies to be badass, right? That we're strong and we're capable and we can do those things. It encourages our genes to increase bone density. It encourages our genes to increase muscle strength and power and agility. It improves our insulin sensitivity, like our glucose, how well our body can handle sugar. And it gobbles up body fat. And everybody likes that, right? Recomposition. The more muscle you have on your body, likely the less body fat you will have on your body. Oh, I was going to post something and I forgot. Oh, I just remembered it. I'm going to do it after it. So I have a new, if you know the food pyramid, right? That we like to poo-poo on here in my world. If you could have a perfect fitness pyramid, I'm going to tell you guys what it would look like. And the base of your fitness pyramid would be aerobic movement, right? Your walking, your NEAT exercise that I just talked about, right? Your just movement, your non-sedentariness of life. That is the base of your fitness pyramid. And then one level up is going to be your strength training, right? So a couple days a week, 2-3 sessions a week. We don't need to go crazy with this. I'm talking like minimal dose to get the maximum benefit. Did I say that right? Minimal dose to get the maximum. I did say that right. Strength training is going to be the middle. And then at the top is going to be your high intensity, like your sprint or something like that. And I'll get into that in a second here. Another reason why strength training is important. Muscle is a very needy cell. Very needy, very, very needy. It's a hungry cell. It's a hungry cell, but in like a good way. You want your muscle cells to be hungry. Muscle is like a sponge, okay? Think of it like, think of all of your muscles in your body just being like a little sponge. It can take up the calories that we eat and put it towards repairing and rebuilding our bodies, which is a very demanding process in our body. So the more fuel, the more fuel that we eat, the more fuel that gets converted to energy and used towards other things like muscle repair, the less that goes to storage on our body, okay? So it's just a neat thing. When we exercise, the food that we eat around that exercise mostly is going to go to repairing your muscles rather than anywhere else in your body, which is great for people who don't want to put on weight, because the likelihood of that food getting shuttled off to storage is very unlikely, because your body's like, yo, like this girl just damaged her muscles. We need to repair, we need to rebuild it. We need to bring in those resources that she just ate, and it's going to shuttle, your insulin's going to shuttle them into your muscle cells to repair and rebuild from there. So that's kind of cool. Longevity. We have tons and tons of white paper studies linking the amount of muscle mass you have on your body with how long you will live. It's important to maintain as much muscle. And I'm not talking about being jacked, you guys. I'm just talking about having an appropriate, a healthy dose of lean muscle mass on your body. There's a slight decrease in muscle mass as we age. I think like every decade we lose about 5% naturally of our muscle mass. So strength training and getting adequate protein intake, which we're already doing, right? You guys are killing the protein intake, are key. And we're already doing this. We're already halfway there because you guys have been prioritizing protein. The other part of that is muscle equals strength and mobility, okay? Two things that we need as we age. We need strength and we need mobility. Think of an elderly person, right? Maybe it's your grandparents or your parents. Think of that kind of like frail, hunched over older person that falls a lot, and then we have a lot of fractures and stuff like that. Those are directly related to the loss of muscle mass and a decrease in their bone density. Have you guys ever seen how much protein an older person eats? You guys, I just visited my grandpa. Okay, my grandpa's in a nursing home right now. He just went into a nursing home, and we were sitting there the other day for their lunch that they brought in. 90% of that fucking plate was sugar. You know, it was like a Jello, like some potatoes. I mean, there was some meat there, but I mean, it was a small, he needs weight. I mean, he's probably topping maybe 50 grams tops of protein a day. And it's sad, you know, and then we wonder why these old folks really struggle to get around. And that is a huge part of it. They lost their strength, they lost their mobility because we lost our bone density and we lost our muscle mass. So protein and strength training of any sort as we get older is key, and even more so for women. Not that it's not helpful for you men, but you maintain a little bit easier than we do. Osteoporosis, sarcopenia, those things tend to get women a little bit more. So that's why I want you guys to focus on strength training here. I know I'm kind of running in time here, so let me look at my notes. Because I started babbling about everything in the beginning of that. But that's just how we roll in the reset. So I want to take a second here and pause about chronic and talk about chronic exercise. Like, what is chronic exercise? Because I keep talking about that, and you might be thinking like, well, like, how do I know what I'm doing is like chronic exercise or that unhelpful exercise? Exercise is ineffective for weight management. Okay, despite what we've been told, our fitness culture likes to tell us, we do not lose fat from exercise. You don't actually need to exercise to lose fat. This is a common misconception. There's a billion reasons why I want you guys to exercise, but fat loss is not one of them. You could literally lose fat sitting on a couch. It's about your diet. Nobody likes to hear that, but it's true. I do not suggest you sit on your couch and try to lose fat, but you could do that because it's all gonna, your ability to burn body fat, to lose body fat is going to come from your food intake, not your exercise. So let's define chronic exercise. That's a pattern of medium to difficult intensity, sustained workouts above our aerobic threshold. Okay, we just talked about what keeps you in that aerobic threshold. This is doing workouts chronically, multiple days a week above your aerobic threshold with insufficient rest in between. That's what the US government's recommendation is for you guys. Thanks, government. Like I said, let's not take nutrition or exercise advice from the US government, please, guys. Because that's their recommendation. I think the recommendation is 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity activity most days of the week. Like, thanks. That effectively promotes burnout. So don't do that. I used to fall into this category, right? The category like more is better. The more I can work out, the more I can do those black hole punishing workouts, the more fit I'd be, the more skinnier I'd be, the more leaner I'd be. And just like my story of the client I shared with you guys earlier, that never worked. Literally, I used to do that all the time, and my body composition never changed. Like, have you ever met the person that they get frustrated about the fact that they work out every day, right? That's usually the women. They're like, yeah, I do spin and I run and I do boot camp and I do the Peloton and I do the Orange Theory and I do CrossFit, and their body composition never changes. And they're like, what the fuck? So what do, right? They eat less and then they move more. The other crappy advice that we've gotten in this world. And we all know how that works out. And then it's frustrating and it's misleading. And those people get really burnt out eventually. But there's a reason their body composition never changes. And because it's too much for our bodies. Our bodies cannot handle that. I just talked to you about that your new fitness pyramid. I'm going to try to post that after I'm done here. But a couple of reasons why we want to avoid that chronic kind of black hole working out all of the time is so our bodies are designed to do a lot of low level, slow and low movement, right? A lot of walking. And then they're designed to do some occasional strength training. Evolutionary perspective here. So if maybe you killed an animal and you had to drag it somewhere, like a heavy animal, maybe you had to build yourself a shelter and you're picking up these like big logs and rocks. I'm thinking like a caveman having to pick up a rock and put it somewhere, right? That was their heavy lifting. And then the occasional high intensity, like the sprint. And that's what we would have done if we were running trying to catch food, or if we were running trying to not get killed, okay? What our bodies don't like to do and what they're not programmed to do is these high intensity, high output, long duration workouts multiple days a week. That's very metabolically confusing for our body to do. One of those things, and I talked about with the client that I shared about you, is it triggers a stress response, okay? It triggers, so cortisol, our stress hormone, cortisol, adrenaline, our fight or flight response gets activated. The stress response isn't bad, right? We want a stress response in our body, but it's not meant to be happening frequently. It's supposed to happen on acute, and then our body should go back into a non-stress state. Kind of what we talked about in regards to food, like our bodies can handle occasional stressors from our food, right? The occasional piece of cake, the cookie that I ate this weekend that our friend baked for us. It's when it happens frequently that we get in trouble. We have to remember, like, our bodies don't know that we're exercising. Does that make sense? Like, our body doesn't know, like, oh, that girl's fitnessing right now. We're not going to give her any of the stress cascade hormones that happen when she's stressed out. Our body doesn't know that. Our body's just responding to the input. So when we're engaging in that kind of chronic exercise, our body's like, legitimately thinks you're running from a bear for 5 days a week, 60 minutes. It's like, what the fuck is she doing? But your body's going to respond accordingly, and it's going to dump the cortisol into your system. It's going to dump the glucose into your system, right? Because it's looking for that fast fuel. And we get into trouble about that. Not to mention, those black hole workouts make us really hungry. They make us very hungry because we're starting to use glucose. We're starting to use sugar at that point in time to support that workout. And we talked about how we have limited stores of glucose in our body. So how do we have to replenish it? We have to eat, right? So that's why and I'm sure you guys can all relate, after you've done a really, really hard workout and you go home and you just want to smash food, okay? But you want to smash like sugary, kind of like carby food, like pancakes and burgers and stuff like that. You know, you're not going home after one of those workouts and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna eat a salad, right? Like that doesn't sound good. And it's because we burn through our sugar stores and our body is wanting to replenish that. So that's kind of why we feel very hungry after those workouts. But think if you were doing those high intensity workouts every single day and then being absolutely ravenous every single time when you're done. So you go home, we smash that giant plate of food because we're starving, because we earned it, even better. It's called the compensation theory. You guys can look that up. We're trying to work out more and harder, and our body compensates by queuing up more hunger, right? So if you feel like you are somebody who gets unmanageable, uncontrollable hunger after you work out, that might be a cue for you that you kind of need to tap the brakes on. You might be working out above your threshold a little bit too much and a little bit too often. And not to mention what I just talked about, kind of that active couch potato syndrome, right? We do a really hard workout and then we don't want to move the rest of the day. We're like, we don't want to go for a walk. We don't want to bring the dog for a walk. Like, it's just like a struggle to get up to even go to the refrigerator. And our daily movement, the movement that's more important, suffers from that. You know, and then a lot of people eventually overtraining, right, leads to burnout and increased risk of injury. I can't tell you how many people I know who, I mean, I'm one of them because I had a broken back for a really long time, and it was probably from my obsessive relationship. You guys, I love fitness. I fall into this category. I am a chronic exerciser. And I'll say that. So I have to be very careful because I walk a fine line with that. I don't do it nearly as much as I used to do before. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you know what my workouts look per week, and they are a sliver of what they used to be before. And because my body was breaking down, like I was hungry all the time. I had no energy. My menses was all messed up. I was cold all the time. That is something to pay attention to. Your body temperature has a lot to do with your metabolism as well. So nonetheless, this is why we don't want to go overboard with kind of that, the cardio bunnies. Like, we'll just call it the cardio bunnies. That's a great, everybody has heard of that before. We don't want to be that person. That's not going to help you. You're not going to get any closer to your body composition goals. You're probably not going to lose a lot of fat. And it's really not that helpful in terms of strength, right? You can't build muscle, and women, you cannot get bulky unless you are shooting steroids into your butt cheek, which I hope you guys aren't. It is impossible to get bulky. Eat all the protein, lift all the weights, and you will not get bulky. And if you see women that are bulky, they're either like that 1% that just is genetically insane, or they're using steroids. Hands down. You will not get bulky. We need women even more. We need to keep our muscle mass as we get older. It is vital. So nonetheless, don't use exercise to burn fat because you're going to be spinning your wheels. If you're working out to the point where you're just compensating by eating a bunch of food and feeling super hangry the rest of the day, probably dial it back a little bit. Yeah, and I want to flip the script. I'm done talking about small bodies and burning calories and burning our bodies down. I'm so over that narrative now, and I really want people to shoot to be strong and durable and robust human beings. Yeah, because the rest is boring. 6 o'clock on the nuts. Nailed it. I babbled a lot in the beginning, so it put me behind. I know. Lindy, Carlene, I appreciate you guys for popping on here. Everybody else that's catching up on the recap, sorry this is a little bit longer and you had to listen about my baby's eczema for the first 10 minutes of your life. In 10 minutes you'll never get back.
But we learned about Egyptian magic cream.
Yes. And actually, so we're gonna go grab some from Whole Foods. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna like put some mascara on, and then I'm gonna try to take it off with this and see what this Egyptian magic is.
Stepping out with the mascara.
I know. So stay tuned on social media for a little review of Egyptian magic cream. And then yeah, just stay tuned. I'll jump on a live a little bit later this week and do the giveaway winners and do a little bit of closing, send you with some positive thoughts and some positive motivation. And that'll be a wrap.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, ladies. I will talk with you later.
Bye.